Okay, so our fourth video in the factoring brochure is going to be factoring trinomials, where the first coefficient is greater than 1. It's called the slip and slide method. So I'm on the back side of my brochure. If you need to get creative with yours, just make sure that it's somehow on your brochure. Okay, so first we are going to look at the notation real quick of a trinomial. Just as a reminder, we have ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c could be different numbers, also known as coefficients. Alright, so the slip and slide method has 4 steps to it, and I'm going to show you one method of slip and slide, and then I'm going to show you a different method of factoring trinomials on a separate sheet of paper. So the first step is to slip the a coefficient to the end of the trinomial and multiply it by c. Next, you're going to factor this new basic trinomial as you would factor as you've been practicing so far. Then you're going to divide your factors by the value you slipped over in step 1. So you're going to divide whatever the c term is in the new basic trinomial. And then you're going to reduce your fractions and slide any denominators up next to the first variable. So once you have these steps written down, and you can pause the video, I'm going to go over 4 examples. I'm going to do mine on a separate sheet of paper, but you'll do yours on your brochure. And here are the 4 problems. So we have 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. We have 5m squared minus 19m plus 6. Number 3 is 6y squared minus 5y minus 4. And the last problem is 12c squared plus 11c minus 5. Okay, so on a separate sheet of paper, I'm going to solve these problems just so I can show you the methods. Alright, step 1 said, slip a to the end of the trinomial and multiply it by c. So when I do 2 times 3, I get 6. So it should now read x squared plus 5x plus 6. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor trinomials. So here's a little bit of a review. Whenever I factor trinomials, I'm going to have a binomial. That I know. And I also know that my first term has to have 2 things that multiply to get x squared. So we have x and x. Okay. Now I need 2 things that multiply to get 6, but add to get 5. So I'm going to introduce a new technique. It's called the x factor, or you can just make an x. What goes in here is a times c. So that would be 6 times 1, which is 6. We want to multiply to get 6, but we want to add to get 5. It has to be 2 factors. So what are the factors of 6? Well, we have 1 and 6, and we have 2 and 3. So which of these add to get us a 5? So the answer would be a 2 and a 3. Okay, you have to pick the pairing. You can't separate. You can't just pick a 1 and a 3. You have to pick the 2 factors that multiply to get 6, but add to get 5. Okay, so now we know that we have an addition sign, plus 2, and plus 3. And then if I were to refoil this, I would come back to this problem. Okay, so that was our step 2. Step 3 says divide both factors by the value you slipped over in step 1. So I'm going to divide both of these terms by 2 because I slipped the 2 over. I'm going to reduce my fractions, so x plus 1. And whatever I have is the remainder, so once I have 1, I'm going to put that remainder in front. So I have 3 over 2, it's already reduced, so I'm going to slip the 2 up front with the x, because that's in my denominator, and I'm going to keep the 3 as it is. So this is your factored trinomial. If you were to check it, you would say x times 2x is 2x squared, x times 3 is 3x, 1 times 2 is 2x, and when you combine those you get 5x, and then 3 times 1 is 3. So we know we have factored our trinomial appropriately. Okay, one more. We have 5m squared minus 17m plus 6. This is problem 2. Okay? We're going to slip the term 5 and multiply it by 6. So we have m squared minus 17m plus 30. We need something that multiplies to get a positive 30, but adds to get a negative 17. So we know that one of our factors is going to be negative and one's going to be positive. And we know that we have to decide, well, what are factors of 30? We have 1 and 30. That doesn't add to get negative 17. We have 2 and 15. If we made both of these negative, that would work. So I made a mistake. You don't always assume that it's going to be negative. It depends on what factors you find. Sometimes it'll be the case where one's positive and one's negative. Sometimes it'll be the case where they're both negative. Because if I take negative 2 and negative 15 and multiply them, I get 30. If I take negative 2 and add negative 15, I get negative 17. So our two factors are negative 2 and negative 15. Okay? So from there, I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to factor my trinomial like normal. So we have m's that go first. We know we have two negative signs. And then we know we have a 2 and a 15. Okay, so that takes care of step 1 and 2. Step 3 says I need to divide both factors by the value you slipped over in step 1. So I'm going to divide by 5. And then I'm going to reduce my factors, and then once I've reduced them, I'm going to slide any denominator back up in front of my first variable. So 2/5 is reduced, so the 5 goes up front and the 2 stays down where it is. In this case, I can factor this. This can take out a 5, so I'll be left with 3. And this can be left with a 1. So the 1 goes in front of the m, and my 3 stays put. And that is your factored trinomial. Okay, I want you to try the following 2 problems, and then I want you to summarize in your own words kind of what's going on.